It's in red, I'm reading this.
Right.
But the other annotations, so am I reading this?
Yeah.
But then other annotations are just like telling me to call a roll call vote.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the present the proclamations, do I go down there to present it to Will?
You can afterwards. There's a proclamation for Will and there's two pledge certificates for Will and Norwood.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Got it. Absolutely. And then I gave you a little bit of speaking notes too. Because
right. That's what, what I need to read.
Yep.
The way.
But I read that before I present it to them?
Right.
Because you're showing me here present pledge certificates, but then I'm not reading it.
So the pledge certificate is because they're going to leave the pledge, and then they're going to go into the item. What you can do is you can present it all at once after the item.
Okay, so this red actually goes down there.
Exactly.
Okay. Where's my snowflakes?
I have them.
Hi, Brian.
Testing.
Sorry.
It's good to start with a joke.
My dry sense of humor.
Let's have some English in there.
Some Cornwall.
Oh.
So good. Papers. Are we ready? Kristen, are we ready? Ready? Everybody ready? Oh.
Oh yes. Can't forget that.
How's that? Come on, my mic's on. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order for the regularly scheduled City of Campbell Council meeting on Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. Per Government Code 54953 states that all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of the legislative body of a local agency except as otherwise provided by this chapter. Members of a legislative body are allowed to participate remotely pursuant to Government Code 54953F2 for just cause, upon their providing a general description of the circumstances relating to their need to appear remotely at the given meeting. Mayor Bybee is hereby requesting to participate in this meeting remotely as a result of a physical disability. Did she say something? Or she
you can represent us.
Okay, she doesn't need to speak. Okay, there she is. She's back. Okay, so I asked for a motion to approve the request by Mayor Bybee to participate to this meeting remotely during an emergency circumstance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee absent. Online.
Aye. Do I vote aye?
Yes, and that's correct. And the record will reflect that you're participating remotely based on that vote of the council. And then, Mayor, if you can disclose if there's anyone in the room with you that's over 18 for purposes of the Brown Act, if you could please describe that to the committee.
No, there is no one over 18 in the room with me. I'm alone.
Thank you. And now we can start the regular meeting, and I need to have a roll call, right? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Scazola.
Here.
Councilmember Furtado.
Here.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Present.
Mayor Bybee.
Present.
Okay, so I am going to invite our Finance Director, Will Fuentes, and Assistant Finance Director, Norte Vong, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in their efforts to receiving the Government Finance Officer's Certificate of Achievement. Please stand.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't go anywhere. Okay, so I have some certificates to present to you, but I'm not going to come down there yet because you're going to get more than one. So I would like to go into special presentations and proclamations. And this is in the recognition of the city receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. And we would like to recognize and congratulate the Finance Department on their dedicated service of receiving the GFOA's Certificate of Achievement of Excellence for Financial Reporting of the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2022. The Government Finance Officers Association, founded in 1906, represents public finance officials throughout the United States and Canada. The GFOA has awarded the City of Campbell the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence for its annual comprehensive financial report. The city has received a Certificate of Achievement for the past 34 consecutive fiscal years and has been made possible by the dedicated service and the entire finance department under the leadership of our finance director and our assistant finance director, with the support of the city manager and the city council. So congratulations. Coming down now. Camera's ready. Okay, thank you guys. Next is communications and petitions, which we have none. And we have nothing to report from our closed session. At this point of the meeting is oral request, and this is the portion of the meeting reserved for people wishing to address the city council on any matter that is not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council are requested but not required to complete a speaker's card. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. The law generally prohibits the council from discussion or taking action on any items. However, the council may address staff accordingly regarding oral requests. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak that are in the chambers? Seeing none, is there anybody online? Okay, seeing none, We're going to go to the mayor's announcements. The city clerk's office is accepting applications for the Civic Improvement Commission, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and the Historic Preservations Board. To find out more about these committees or to apply, please contact the city's clerk's office at 408-866-2117 or visit the city's website at campbellca.gov. Visit the Ainsley House this holiday season. The house will be decorated with the theme of Christmas cravings. Exciting events such as the holiday tea and tour, photos with Santa, and the holiday boutique await. For additional information, please visit campbellmuseums.com. The Campbell Community Toy Program is in need of toys, books, soccer balls, and games. Toy collection bins have been placed at various locations, including the City Hall, Police Department, the Community Center, and Fire Station located at Union and Sunny Oaks. For more information on this program, please visit campbelltoyprogram.com. The City of Campbell is committed to supporting its citizens by strengthening its neighborhoods. The cities offer grant funding to help neighborhoods build a sense of community through its Neighborhood Associations Assistant Grant Program. Applications to apply remain open till January 12th of 2024. Neighborhood associations within the City of Campbell are encouraged to apply. For more information, please visit the city's website at campbellca.gov. 'Tis the season for potential theft and holiday crimes. Please do not leave your packages or valuables on the seats of your car. Always lock them in the trunk. Keep all doors locked and windows closed and set your alarms. If shopping at night, remember to park in a well-lit area. Please be sure to report suspicious activity to our Campbell Police Department at 408-866-2101, or if you encounter an emergency, please dial 911. City Hall offices will be closed for business beginning noon on Friday, December 22nd through Monday, January 1st. Back open on the 2nd, correct? Or the 1st? Back 2nd. Police and emergency services will remain open. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. All these matters are going to be considered as one action unless an item is removed. Is there anybody who would like to remove an item from the agenda? The consent calendar, I'm sorry. Anybody in the public? No, and I'm going to remove item 13. No, 12. Item 12. Okay. Other than item 12, do we have a motion to approve consent?
I move that the city council approve the consent calendar items 2 through 11 and item 13.
Okay, and wasn't there a correction to one of these items, Brian? There was something that Ann brought up. Okay, so it's just on the resolution. All right, so we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lantry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Okay, so now let me go here to, sorry. Sorry, you guys, hold on real quick. Okay, so I'm speaking about item number 12, which is the specifications and authorizing an issuance of request for proposal for preparation of a park and recreation master plan. And in this report, there is a RFP that has a deadline of January 12th of 2024 at 4 p.m. And the budget for the project is $200,000. And after review of the proposal, I feel that there might be a really tight turnaround with the January 12th, with the closure of Christmas and the week. And the fact that we have our advertising would start tomorrow, maybe a week for people to pull their teams together. Then we get into Christmas and then right thereafter. And I feel like this is a really important thing that we're going to be doing this plan. And I would hope to give our consultant proposal teams a little extra time. And I wanted to know if you guys would support a 1 or 2 week extension. I did ask Natasha ahead of time for some of her responses, and her concern is that with the budget cycle coming up and the time it takes to do all these things, that it's pushing up against the time constraint from our side. But I'm also concerned that we get really thoughtful, comprehensive proposals. So that's the first request, is whether we want to give them another week, or I prefer 2, but I'd say a week would be good. And then the $200,000, that was what we budgeted, but at the time I personally didn't see the RFP. To me, it seems like it might come in over. So my question is, if it does come over the 200,000, do you have to come back to council? Or how, so I want to try to have you not have to come back. So could we increase the dollar amount to make sure you don't have to come back?
Just authorizing the issuance.
Okay, and then the other question I forgot to bring up was, in the criteria of evaluation, you have 100-point total, but in there up to 15 points could be a fee. And I mentioned that I thought that these types of contracts, you do not use fee as your selection criteria, that the fee is usually in the sealed envelope. So you base the selection on design expertise, master planning, and then rank them and then open the fee.
Yeah, I mean.
Is your mic on?
There it is. It can honestly go either way. In reviewing drafts from other agencies and looking at best practices of how our other agencies do this, no one has been doing them in sealed envelopes. So I was truly mirroring what is happening in other locations as well. So people who respond to these, the consultants who do park and recreation master planning, they're prepared for that as part of the thing, because everyone is going to have a different scope about how many meetings they're required to attend and those types of things. So it can vary greatly, and how far they are. So if they're not a local team, the cost of them coming is going to play a role in that decision factor for us.
Okay, so I'm used to seeing the team be selected on its merit first and ranking in that order, and then looking at the fee. So, because if you evaluate the fee as part of the ranking criteria, you may not get the most qualified because the fee is lower. Does that make sense?
I think you can, the whole point is to be objective when you're reading through all the proposals, is that you're going through and you're ranking based on those, and price does play a role in that for us, and it is a criteria. It isn't our job to take the lowest responsive bidder, if I'm correct, so we can. And Bill, do you want to chime in?
Sure. I would just comment that if we were seeking specifically a design professional to do the design work, you would be correct that the law prohibits us from using the price as the criteria for awarding the contract. My understanding is that's not what we're seeking here, that this is more of a programmatic document that does not seek design services per se.
So then the fee is part of the 100 points. Okay, so then you've answered the budget question, you've answered the second, now it comes down to, do we want to give them an extra week or two because of the holiday?
Question to ask you, actually. It seems to be that persons interested in bidding on this would themselves be already professionals and sort of prepared to do these kind of things. It's not like something open to the community where we have to make sure it's properly advertised. I mean, so I guess my question is, I'm not sure that I see the need for that, since it's a rather small audience of people, businesses that sort of are in this business to make these kinds of proposals.
But there's been no outreach to anybody ahead of time. So tomorrow is the first time anybody would see the proposal, is my understanding. So that was, I just wanted to make sure they had enough time to advertise, because you may not hear about it tomorrow. You may hear about it in the next couple of days. You got to make sure you have your right team. Then Christmas starts, and then it's due 2 weeks after the holiday. So that was my concern. But I hear what you're saying. That's happening.
I can share that I have collected a variety of firms through our state organization as well as the national organization, and reached out to local directors within the county who have done similar RFPs asking for recommendations, as well as community development has reached out to the Open Space Authority and neighboring city of San Jose. So I have a lengthy list of firms that do this type of work that will be notified tomorrow of the posting of the RFP. So that gives you 5 weeks in total from tomorrow to the day that it's due, with a week off for the holidays, which is a typical 4-week turnaround for RFPs.
Support for an extra week. So I will take a motion to approve item 12. Thank you, Natasha and Todd.
I'll just say I felt her confidence, and so I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Like, just she seemed very confident that they could do it, so I'll just trust Natasha on this one.
I'm listening to the recommendation of staff, but I do appreciate you bringing up it's not my area of expertise, so I think it's good to air that discussion.
Christmas would be fair. Okay, so I need a motion on item 12.
Move the adoption of item 12.
Second.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Hi.
That motion passes. So now we're going to go to public hearings and introductions of ordinances. And we have item number 14, which is the ADU interim ordinance. And we have Larissa Lohman, assistant planner, and Rob Eastwood. And if you would like to present it, my understanding is this is needs a 4 yay vote to pass.
That's correct. So given the brevity of the item, I asked Assistant Planner Alyssa Logan to take the night off. This item simply before you extends the interim ordinance that you adopted on November 7th to put interim standards in place for our ADU ordinance, so it's not null and void while we prepare an ADU ordinance that can be adopted by council. That interim ordinance you adopted on November 7th will expire on December 22nd. This action before you tonight will extend the interim ordinance until December 31st, 2024. It gives the city enough time to prepare a normal ordinance or a standard ordinance to bring back to you for adoption. Available for questions if you have. Oh, so the current ordinance will expire on December 22nd. If you took no action, it would expire, and our AD ordinance might be subject to null and void provisions. The action you take tonight will extend it to December 31st. Sorry, Councilman, December 31st, 2024, to give sufficient time.
Without any discussion, I'll make the motion. To adopt an ordinance to extend interim ordinance number 2299 that adopted urgency revisions to Title 21 to conform with recent feedback and direction from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, regarding accessory dwelling units.
I'll second.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
And at this point, that motion passed. And then I need the deputy city clerk to read the title of ordinance.
Being an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Campbell extending urgency revisions to Title 21 related to accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units to conform with compliance findings of the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, adopted under ordinance number 2299, PLN 2023-132.
That further reading be waived.
Second.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
That motion passes. All right, we're going to go on to new business now, and we're going to review and provide feedback on recommendations from the Planning Commission's Ad Hoc Economic Development Advisory Subcommittee on proposed amendments to the Campbell Municipal Code relating to the permissibility of land uses in commercial, office, and industrial zoning districts to support business attraction and retention objectives identified during preparation of the city's updated economic development plan. And we have Stephen Rose, it says on my paper, but he looks like Rob.
You'll have to suffer with me for introductory remarks. Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director. I actually have two people to introduce, so most of the presentation will be Senior Planner Stephen Rose. We're very happy to have with us Plan Commissioner Davis Fields. He was spearheading the Economic Development Ad Hoc Subcommittee to the Plan Commission. So I'll just provide a few words to start. Commissioner Fields is going to provide some narrative and background on the work they did, and Stephen Rose will get into the nuts and bolts of what's before you. So that's the meeting structure we're proposing. Of course, with the council, given your study session this afternoon, a lot of this should be fresh in your minds on the focus of the Economic Development Plan. If we go to the next slide. So what we have tonight is potentially an opportunity to get some synergy on a broad effort that you discussed this afternoon on how to improve the economic development climate in Campbell and strategies to do that. One of the things you heard this afternoon, probably the top recommendation from our stakeholders, was to do a bit more on our permit streamlining. A lot of feedback that it takes a long time to get a conditional use permit. And if there's areas where it does not make sense to have a conditional use permit, it's not adding value to the permit process, folks aren't coming out and disgruntled by perhaps a use that's coming in that needs a conditional use permit, to take a look at streamlining that permit process to help our businesses move in and start up shop. What we have tonight is the opportunity to start moving on those recommendations. So a little bit of background, once the economic development plan work started, in synergy with that, our planning commission had started some discussions on observing many conditional use permits that had gone to the planning commission in the absence of stakeholders, and questions on why would this type of use, which seems so benign, need a conditional use permit. So a few months ago, the Planning Commission created an economic development ad hoc subcommittee comprised of Commissioner Fields and Commissioner Campcar, and they started work on research, looking into what could we do to streamline those activities. I personally saw this as a great synergy where we could take that broad input from our stakeholders on streamlining, and the Planning Commission could do some research and recommendations to move that along quicker than normal. It does present the opportunity to put some ordinances into place next year as you adopt the economic development plan, and that has the momentum of that feedback of having that happen right away. Typically when plans are adopted, you have a laundry list of things to do, and it'll take 6 more months for the ordinances to come back. But with your blessing tonight on some of these items, our plan is actually to bring the ordinances back when you consider the economic development plan that would streamline the conditional use permit. So the idea is to hand in glove have that adopted next year. With that, I have not much more to add. I'm going to hand it over to Planning Commissioner Davis Fields, and he'll walk you through some of the research they did and the principles of how they approach this work.
Real quick before you step away, Rob.
Yeah.
You're saying the ordinances are going to come back at the same time as economic development or after, or?
Yeah, that is our plan. Yeah, if you'll remember, we have a new strategy that we use with the general plan, where we adopted the general plan housing element and zoning ordinances at the same time. There's sort of a hand-in-glove approach to not only having the recommendations on the land uses, but the ordinances to implement them. The idea was, rather than have a plan be adopted that recommend streamlining and wait 4 more months, if the council gives blessing to the proposed streamlining that's presented tonight, we would actually bring the ordinances forward at the same time as the economic development plan. So the streamlining would go into effect when you adopt the plan.
Hi,
how's it going? Thank you, council members, for the time. Thank you to staff for helping look into this. It's been really a fun, interesting process. This slide walks through the principles of the work that Commissioner Campbell and I really guided the process with. The first principle is really about how did we select the uses, and just generally we're looking at efficiency. Like we said, there were all these cases where businesses were coming in front of commission, presenting something, unanimous approval, we repeat. And that's generally what we looked at, is these sort of really common, popular use cases. What we also would look at is what our neighboring cities do. We're adjacent to other towns. Is Campbell really out of alignment on some of these? Are we being more restrictive for businesses opening than our neighboring towns? And then the other thing that we did was look specifically, like Rob said, at the economic development plan. Are there uses that are becoming more popular across the board that right now Campbell is just more restrictive on? The next 4 principles, though, were all things we did to really prevent unintended consequences from this work. So I think staff, again, did a really thoughtful job taking the input that Commissioner Campbell and I, and then looked specifically at, like, what would you do in the ordinance to make sure you don't have overpopulation? If you make it a little bit easier to open medical services, you don't want to have Hamilton Plaza all of a sudden overwhelmed with dental offices. So I think they did a really thoughtful job on that. So specifically, there's just a lot of things that we aren't looking at. We're only touching 18 of the 186 uses here. If you look at principle number 3 in particular, we're not trying to change things in the downtown. This is really sort of aimed at these things that we think have just been sort of unanimously popular, streamlining efficiency. And then Stephen's slides on principles 4 and 5 talk a lot more about, like, specifically how this gets implemented on the code. So I think that'll be sort of interesting slides and discussion as we get to those. The last thing we really wanted to do is make sure we were still doing public notification. So these still will be publicly notified. If someone wants to file an appeal, the city's made that really easy. They can still come before the planning commission. They can still come before council. So this isn't moving it sort of to some, like, silent track. So what we did is look at the last 10 years of permit approvals. So there were 105 CUPs that we reviewed, because as Rob mentioned, I was one of the commissioners that observed, like, why are we making someone come in here? This seems benign. I'd noticed there've been 3 or 4 medical services just in the 2 years I've been in the commission. And you can see the 105 that we had, 102 of them were approved by the commission. So in general, these are coming, they're being approved. And for the most part, there's not a lot of controversy. There's not a lot of public comment. The ones that we're proposing touching specifically are the ones that were just sort of universally accepted. So we went through and looked, like, what did people come and talk about? So uses specifically like small fitness centers, medical services. These were sort of the uses that we'll talk more about in some of the slides. Like I mentioned, we would then look at, hey, what's Cupertino doing? What is Los Gatos doing? What are the other towns? See if we have benchmarks there. And we also had some great conversations with the city's economic development consultant, as well as a commercial broker, Iconic, just to get their input on as well. Are there other uses we should be thinking about? We shared the list with them, so it was a real nice iterative process. I think I'm going to turn it over to Stephen now, because he's got a lot of great slides to kind of walk through specifically what this looks like in code. And again, thank you all for the time.
thank you.
All right. So just to rehash, so the city of Campbell presently requires
approval of one of three permit processes on the screen to establish a new business. The first of which is a zoning clearance. It's issued by staff under the authority of the community development director. It costs about $237 to complete the process. The second tier is an administrative conditional use permit. This is also approved under the authority of the director after public notice. And decision under these permits may be appealed to the planning commission and ultimately the council. The third and most expensive is a $5,000 permit, which is called a conditional use permit. This is the one that Commissioner Fields was mentioning a moment ago. These are all the items which are going before the planning commission, 97% of which were being approved that were evaluated in the last 10 years. And again, these are approved by the planning commission after public notice and public hearing, and decisions may also be appealed to the council. So each of these permit processes in our code are assigned to each of the 186 distinct land uses that we have in order to provide for appropriate regulatory oversight and to avoid the adverse impacts of neighboring uses or the surrounding community. So in addition to assigning just a permit process, the many uses in the city are also controlled through one or more of the following zoning tools, which minimally involves the identification of the appropriate zoning district in which the use should occur. To avoid adverse impacts from the uses considered for streamlining tonight, 4 tools have been identified, the first of which is considering imposing a restriction on the percentage that a use may occupy on a given property or site. The example being, as Commissioner Fields had mentioned a moment ago, a medical office use might be certainly appropriate in, say, the broader sense of a commercial shopping center. But when too many medical offices start to populate in the exact same center, you can start to change the character or the overall feel of a center, start to turn it into like a medical office park. The second is imposing restrictions on placement. There are a number of different ways of doing this. An example is zoning districts. Another that's up for consideration tonight is to permit uses where the business is located more than 50 feet away from a public right-of-way. The intent behind this is to try to preserve those best, most visible retail spaces, like these, like the jewel box locations on the corners of 2 key intersections for uses that really rely on that passerby traffic and aren't really destination land uses, such as like a medical office use may be. We also have imposed restrictions on size and operations, which we'll cover a little bit more in detail with actual specific case studies on the following slides. So just to kind of highlight these zoning tools of practice as they are presented in the report, in the table, which is I think I'm like the 4th or 5th page of the report, you'll find that in these columns of your zoning clearance, administrative conditional use permit, conditional use permit, you can see these zoning tools in practice. So restriction on the percentage is in red, restrictions in placement in blue, size are in green, and restrictions on operations are those in yellow. So to really help kind of ground the exercise and visualize the impact of the proposed changes in the real world, on the screen is the first of 3 case studies which highlight how use is be streamlined while also avoiding unintended consequences through the application of these various zoning tools. So this use is for the small studios use that was previously mentioned. As of present, this requires a conditional use permit. These are all going to planning commission. They take 4 to 6 months. They have a substantive cost associated with them. Under the proposed process, many of these would be lowered to a zoning clearance when, again, they meet one or more of these requirements. The zoning tools are applied. So when they occupy less than 10% of the area of a given property or shopping center, and when they're located more than 50 feet from the right-of-way. So on the screen are 2 examples. The first is a fitness studio that's over in a shopping center by Stripe Brewery, and the other is in the Lloyd Shopping Center, which is a Pilates studio. Both of these uses occupy respectively less than 10% of their overall area, and they're also more than 50 feet away from the right-of-way. So these would be examples of uses which could be streamlined through these proposed changes. So as another use that's being considered for streamlining is those restaurants with beer and wine only service. Again, as of present, they require a conditional use permit. As proposed, in all cases, they would require an administrative conditional use permit, so not going all the way down to being a permitted by right zoning clearance activity. So there still would be an opportunity for public input and engagement. Neighbors would still be notified, and it would still be appealable to the planning commission and ultimately the council. But when these uses operate under specific operational requirements, such as Mod Pizza here, if Mod Pizza were to be providing a full service menu in all times that they are providing beer and wine service, and other requirements which we may impose, such as not having a dedicated separate bar area, that there's actual seating spaces, that when those conditions are met, they would be eligible for streamlining through the administrative conditional use permit process. This is the last of the case studies. It's really our last tool, which is the imposition of a restriction on the size of the tenant space. So we talked about the restricting the location. We talked about imposing operational requirements. This is really it's a progressive tool that allows you to say, based on the tenant space, certain activities we want to bring for a public hearing process. So in the code or for these uses that we're talking about, uses that are under 10,000 square feet for retail stores would be facilitated through a zoning clearance process, very expeditiously handled. When you're over 20,000 square feet or over, an example being the Staples building over on Salmar in Hamilton, that could be processed through an administrative conditional use permit. And then finally, conditional use permit would be like those largest commercial retail tenant spaces like Home Depot. So in addition to the streamlining which we're considering as part of Title 21 change to the zoning ordinance, the police department also reviewed these changes and suggested a few streamlining measures of their own. On the screen are those permit processes that are currently processed through the police department, Title 5 of our zoning ordinance, which all require council approval. Some of these are rather small uses like arcades, offering 2 to 9 amusement devices. Across the board, the recommendation that's being recommended by staff would be that we push the decision-making authority down to the chief of police, or potentially remove the process where required due to recent amendments to state law. And with that, I'll just remind the council that the purpose tonight is simply to collect feedback on these proposed changes. No final decisions, study session item, no decisions can be made. As mentioned by Community Development Director Eastwood earlier, it's our intention to synchronize these updates with the Economic Development Plan, which will be coming before you sometime next year. And you'll have an additional opportunity to comment on the proposed specific language in these zoning code ordinances as we advance. And that really brings us to the end of my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'm available. Thank you. Of course.
So, I'm going to ask questions. Ask questions.
Susan, I can't hear you when you're speaking. I'm not sure if you're not talking into the microphone or you haven't turned it on, but I have a question, a couple questions, Stephen. Could you explain the difference between the proposed changes to the restaurant with the beer and wine versus full service? How that process is being recommended to be amended?
So just to re-clarify that, as of present, any business serving or selling alcohol in the city requires a conditional use permit. That includes any restaurant serving beer and wine. So under the proposed ordinance, or under the proposed changes, which would come back with an ordinance, it would be staff's intention to amend that to be an administrative conditional use permit when the restaurant is offering a full service beer and wine, so full menu, full suite of food products. So they couldn't say stop food service at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and then continue serving beer and wine exclusively up until 11 p.m. They would have to provide their full service of food accompaniment the entire hours that they're operating, as an example. We're going to be modeling largely these operational standards off of those standards which are found in the downtown beverage alcohol policy, which also includes additional operating requirements for uses when you're operating a restaurant in conjunction with beer and wine, such as no high top tables, nothing requirements of the kind.
So essentially, the process isn't changing. The CUP process isn't changing, except with the exception that the approval will now be done by the community development director. Is that a correct?
Correct. So it would not be heard necessarily by the planning commission, to be decided upon by the community development director, except on appeal.
Okay. And then as far regarding packet page 187, and the indoor amusement, entertainment, administrative CUP. So what exactly is indoor amusement entertainment? Is that something like the arcade, the semi-arcade?
It can be probably the clearest example provided the code would be like a bowling alley. Would be an example.
But so the arcade or semi-arcade does not fall under that land use description?
It would, it could.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think I had it off for a while. Okay, should we start with Sergio? Do you have any comments or questions?
Sure, just one question. We don't need to spend too much time on this even, but I'm curious. Could you talk just a little bit about some of the changes in state law that may impact the ultimate form that some of this takes?
I'd largely defer to the city attorney, but as an example that we have, that hypnotherapy requires a specialized permit.
And that was a change in state law to not.
I believe it might be an older one.
Actually, that was a case law decision that essentially found that hypnotherapy, well, it wasn't hypnotherapy, actually. I think that really dealt with palm reading and that kind of thing that was found essentially to be a First Amendment protected activity. Hypnotherapy, actually, there have been some changes in state law over the years regarding licensing that restrict the city's ability to, with regard to licensing of hypnotherapy and the restraints that we can put on it.
Wow, those aren't the topics I expected to be getting into tonight, but I appreciate it. I just asked that because, you know, if that gives us opportunities to streamline things in ways that make sense and support this process, I think that's great. Mostly, I just want to say thank you to staff and Davis and Matt, commissioners, for all the work on this in a really smart, strategic way to really tap into that knowledge and enthusiasm and put that good work on our planning commission. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions, but I also want to just double down on thanking you guys for all the hard work you put into it. It really shows.
Likewise, I don't have any specific questions, but I did also want to acknowledge the staff as well as the subcommittee of the Planning Commission and the Commission as a whole. And as was mentioned in the initial presentation, it's kind of right in line with some of our goals of our economic development plan as it is being developed. And I think this certainly will add to our ability to streamline the whole process and sort of, quote, cut the red tape where necessary and appropriate. So I support the maneuver.
Thank you. Okay, so I have questions and comments. Under your, what's packet page 190, you had a chart that talks about the police chief and permitting. So Rob would still be the final say, or the police chief is the final say, or do they both get say in it?
Those permits would be decided exclusively upon by the chief of police.
But you would review the application to start with and make sure everything is
Yeah, let me jump in. The question came up of who the appropriate clearinghouse, what department would be the clearinghouse. Typically, these permits you see in this table were administered, those reports were written, the analysis was done by the police department. The question came up in some of the discussions whether or not it would be more appropriate to have development be the clearinghouse for these. Certainly the police chief would have to sign off on these permits, but they could be processed by community development, not by PD, and PD participate in that process. That was the question I think we received.
Okay, and so for instance, arcade of 10 or more amusement devices, that would no longer require anything other than the police chief to sign off, no conditional use permit, no administrative permit. Okay, all right, let me see here. Let me go down my list here. Some of them had to do with definitions.
I may clarify, because I think I understand what the question's headed. There are still two distinct permit processes. So all uses, all businesses must go under one of those three processes identified earlier: zoning clearance, administrative conditional use permit, or conditional use permit. There's no way around that. In addition to that permitting process, these requirements hold in Title V. You need to secure an additional permit issued through the police department or through the authority of the council through that section that's regulated by the police department. Generally, really dealing with like fingerprinting requirements and other operational standards, understanding the people who are operating the business. An example of arcade that can often be seen as turning into casino activity. So oftentimes those types of activities, although they are like amusement center type activity, and we view that under our zoning ordinance as like an indoor entertainment use. The police department also wants to be involved to ensure that those devices aren't gaming devices.
So there is two permits. They still need the zoning and the police chief to approve.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm looking at related definitions on page 196, and I have studio large, and it talks about fitness, dance, music. How is that different than the definition under health and fitness center? What's the difference? Because that one is athletic clubs, similar establishments regarding fitness, and studio also has fitness as part of it.
Yeah, so what it offers, generally studio uses are restricted based on the size. They are often appointment-based activities, while health and fitness studios can be more open-ended and membership-based. So a good example would be like 24-hour fitness might be a health club, an activity, but if you had a small little studio where you're offering a karate class, you had 8 seats available, designated to individual students, that would fall under, say, a studio use, either small or large, depending on size.
Because under your definition, it talks about health and fitness had to do with a paid membership, where studios would also still have a paid membership at some of them. So I was trying to equate to the definition of how they're different.
Yeah, there's some definitional cleanup that's probably warranted, okay. But I would just candidly, yeah, that's generally how we've applied it.
And years ago, I brought up about maker space, where you'd have craft and tech people working. Is that under a studio? Where would that fall?
There is the state land use in the code, which would, depending on what you're describing as maker space, I think it might actually be captured in the definitions we have here as well. See if I can find it.
You don't have to find. I'm just, because we're asking questions tonight. So
it's
where
just
that
like a small hobby craft type activities. It's everything like that. If you're fabricating small candles or other activities, there is a distinct. There's 186 distinct land uses in the code. One of them addresses small handicraft activities.
So it's not a studio then.
It would not be a studio, no.
Okay.
Not necessarily. But if you're doing like a painting activity and entertaining people through that, it might fall under that activity.
Okay, under 133 restaurants, fast food with or without a drive-through service. And then it says, does not include drive-through uses, which are separately defined as outdoor active activities, but that wasn't listed on your list of definitions of outdoor active activities.
It's, so I would clarify. So what we're trying, that section under 133, you're just trying to make a very clear distinction to the council that when we're talking about streamlining fast food restaurants, that we're not talking about drive-through activities. Those would still remain a conditional use under the proposed changes. So the next time we have a tenant, say like In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, that has like that drive-through component, that would remain a full-blown conditional use permit decided upon by the minimally planning commission.
Okay, so I brought this up on our previous planning director told me what the definition of fast food is in our ordinance is pre-packaged food. I'm assuming that's still correct as what we define fast food as. And now we have things like curbside pickup, which prepackaged food again is what I heard the definition of fast food is. Now we have curbside pickup, so you're pre-packaging your food. So does that count now like a drive-through? How does this curbside pickup fall into where all these definitions are?
We would generally consider you a full service restaurant if you have indoor seating and that you provide some type of non-disposable cutlery and other, I mean, the definitions are generally provided. I can read aloud what it's.
No, I'm just trying to figure out, because drive-through are being separated out for issues like what we had with Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out. And I did bring it up back then, but what's the difference between having a drive-through with the queue versus having 10 designated spaces for curbside pickup? Are those now under one category? Because lots of businesses all of a sudden just automatically have curbside pickup.
I would, well, there's a few things we're touching on, which is our parking and loading ordinance, which generally requires all spaces must be available to all uses. So designating a space could require a distinct and discrete permit process where the city would need to be involved and evaluate whether or not we want to permit that use of those parking spaces. So you're effectively taking away from the pool of available spaces. That's one way that those spaces would be regulated. As far as the operational aspects, some people just grab food, take it out of a restaurant, and drive away with it. I mean, many full-service restaurants do provide a to-go option. That would make the business of fast food restaurant necessarily by itself. It's meeting all of those definitional requirements of fast food and not overlapping those definitional requirements which constitute full-service restaurant, which would make that distinction clear.
So can a business who has a parking requirement that you said has to be open to everybody take 10 spaces and make them designated specifically to curbside only? Or is that now given they can do that, or is this a permit they have to get?
You would need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but generally speaking, reserving parking spaces, dedicated parking spaces to individual tenant is something you find that parking involved.
Okay. And I think that's it for my comments. Let me just double check here. What is our position on ghost kitchens? That they are allowed?
So it depends on what one defines exclusively as a ghost kitchen. Ghost kitchens, if you are operating a business in which you are exclusively closed to the public and just manufacturing food, which is then served out of sight. So you're saying, calling it Chipotle, but there's no Chipotle in the area, the food still arrives at your door. That would fall generally under our definition of food and beverage manufacturing. It is a permitted use in our industrial zones. So it is an activity which we see tantamount to like an industrial activity, or if it doesn't matter if you're bottling bottles or if you're making food or bottles, you fall under that kind of distinction. Now, if you are a restaurant and at the back of your shop, you still have met the definitional requirements of a restaurant, including chairs, tables, and service, and people could enter into your space. You're not closed off to the public. And out of the back, you happen to have an additional type of menu item that you're sharing that space with, and you were to serve that out of the tenant, out of the kitchen, that would be probably ancillary to the primary use of a restaurant. That would be something that would be also permitted as a restaurant activity. We wouldn't allow that ghost kitchen that's closed off the public to occur in a commercial zone.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? So I just want to really thank you, one, for coming tonight, two, for all the work. This is pretty extensive. I know you worked with staff, but it's great to know that all our ducks are getting in a line. We have our economic development going on. We have this streamlining permitting issue came up as one of the #1 issues for you guys to take that on wholeheartedly and to get this done. I think has been great, and thank you. And you do not need a motion on this? Oh, yep. Oh, Oh, I'm sorry, Ann, I see your hands up, sorry. You're on mute.
Was there going to be any public comment on it before we go to council discussion, or are we in council discussion? I asked my questions, but I do have a couple comments.
Sorry. I wasn't prepared for today. Yes, I will open this to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, is there anybody online? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. And Nan, you have comments?
Yeah, I just want to say that I definitely support streamlining the process wherever we can, and to make sure that it's more efficient and more customer service friendly to the public. I wanted to thank the Planning Commission Ad Hoc Committee for all their work and research that they've put into this. The one comment that I want to see some further revisions on is the permitting process that's on packet page 190. I'm totally supportive that those don't have to come to council anymore, but from what I understood Stephen to say is that this is an additional permit that goes beyond what the community development director approves. And to me, some of these can really fall within the zoning, and that planning should be more of the clearinghouse than PD. I think it puts an undue burden on the PD to understand zoning laws, whether or not an arcade or semi-arcade is permitted in a certain location. So I would like to see that part of the process refined somewhat and really under the purview of the community development department, so that there isn't 2 or 3 permits that the applicant has to apply for and pay for. I don't understand the duplication of that. So hopefully that could be looked at in the review that's coming up. Thank you.
And was it just the arcade one, or were there more in that category?
It's that entire category that's on page 190 that are now permitted through the PD via the city council approval.
Landry, if I could just make a comment on that the main reason that there are 2 permitting processes in some instances is all land use permits run with the land, regardless of how many business owners change over, whereas the permits issued through the police department are issued to particular businesses, so that every time a business changes, even if it's in the same location, it would trigger a review, so that you're not getting someone who's going to operate improperly at that particular business.
And I understand that, but it seems to me that the community development department is really the expert matter, that they have the expertise in the land use and what's being recommended for that location. I mean, you can't put in an arcade in an area that's not zoned properly. So to me, it seems like you're putting an undue burden on the police department to figure that out. So I'm suggesting that it be more streamlined so that there isn't a lot of duplication in the permitting process. That's all. Thank you.
I was just going to add that we can do that when that now's the time to do that. We're looking at these processes. I can tell you, because I've talked with the police chief, he's not going to oppose this community development being the clearinghouse in these areas, and perhaps a better position to be able to work with the applicants and process permits. So we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Any more comments? No, Ann.
No, thank you.
Sergio?
Yeah, just thank you. And I'm very supportive of the direction. Really excited to see what comes forward. And I just love how the strategic vision behind this that our staff takes. I always love bragging to other cities about it, but it's really intelligent the way we're going about it. So thank you.
And I would just add, I would follow up with what Mayor Bybee suggested. I had highlighted 3 things under the chart of arcade over 10, pawnbrokers, and used car dealers. I was kind of questioning them, those 3 specifically, about the police chief being the one to approve them. So what you had said, Brian, would be good. Okay, do you guys have enough information from us? I get seeing a thumbs up. So thank you again to our let's see, Economic Development Planning Commission Ad Hoc Subcommittee. Thank you. And no motion is required. So we're going to move on to item number 16, which is an amendment to the flock safety contract to reflect organized retail theft grant expansion. And we have Captain Ian White presenting.
And if I could just clarify, and perhaps Captain White was going to say this, for items 16, 17, and 18, we're going to do one presentation that relates to all 3 of them, but we will take the discussion questions on each item separately. So it'll be one presentation for those 3 items.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Council members, Madam Mayor. I'm presenting, I think about a month ago, I came to you and presented the acceptance of our organized retail theft grant funds totaling about $400,562 exactly. And so tonight I'm here to talk about how we'd like to spend that money, hoping that you'll approve that. So it's a 3-part project, and to give some background, the way that this proposal went is the grant really was a proposal of the project, and then the grant was approved based on that proposal. So this is really the follow through moment to fund what we proposed doing. So the first portion of that proposal was an increase in our outlay of flock automated license plate reader cameras. And if you had a chance to review some of it, as you know, in September of 2022, we went live with our first round of flock cameras that was approved by council earlier that year in the mid-year budget. And since that time, based on the use of those cameras, we've had a 55% increase in arrests and in custodies of occupied stolen vehicles. It has assisted with crimes including homicide, identity theft, drug sales, weapons possession, child endangerment, and many more. I can't tell you how beneficial the technology has been in helping us prevent and solve crimes that we would not have been able to without it. And based on the fact that the organized retail theft grant was also focused not only on organized retail theft, but auto theft, it seemed like a very reasonable request. And again, it was a major part of the project that was proposed and consistent with what a lot of the other cities are doing. So the second portion of that, and I'm gonna go somewhat out of order. There's really one main technology item that we're looking at that kind of brings all of these things together, and that's our Fusus Real-Time Information Center software. Fusus cloud-based real-time information center technology allows for quick implementation of real-time information center with fewer staff resources, allows for the integration with the existing intersection cameras, flock license plate readers, officer body cameras, drones, patrol vehicle cameras, private and public cameras, and surveillance systems. This offers us the ability to meet with retailers, give them an opportunity to share live feeds of their video cameras that can be permission based. And that was one of the big components of why we looked at this technology, was being able to engage. And that was one of the other parts of the retail theft grant, was how do you engage with retailers and your constituency to involve them in proactively addressing the problem. So that technology is going to allow us to give them that opportunity to really engage with us in a meaningful way and help them solve these crimes. And then lastly, I'm looking for your approval in the purchase of 2 rooftop drones and boxes. And I know about a year ago, I was here, probably a little over a year ago, I was here in front of council talking about the purchase of our first drone to enable our DFR program. Since then, we've partnered with CERT in an attempt to assist with the lack of staff resources that we have to enable this program, and knowing that as we push towards newer technologies and in this space, this is definitely a emerging space in law enforcement, and is the future of how we are going to address crimes. We know that for sure based on the direction other cities are going. But we knew that we would be coming back to talk about the advancements in these technologies and what we would need to do to continue to make our staff more efficient. And by moving towards these rooftop mounted drones, it pulls our staff off of the roof. We're not paying people to stand up on top of the roof and launch a drone. The drones will just be there, ready to go, charging, and will go to where they need to go and come back. And really, this is the first step in the advancement of the future, where an address goes into a computer and the drone flies there, and then video feed starts coming in. And that's really where we're headed. I think one of the council members likes to say we punch above our weight a lot, and I think that's not accidental. We have created a lot of private-public partnerships with large technology companies based upon, our chief's vision and our entry into this space early on. We're definitely at the forefront of it, and while there is an investment in that, these partnerships that we're engaging in right now and this pilot project that we're going to be engaged in over the next 3 years with this grant money, it's going to allow us to probably be the first in the nation to get people off the roof and advance this technology in a way that really changes the way law enforcement uses it. So that all being said, I will open to questions, but would you like me to make the recommendation first, sir, or open to questions first?
I make the recommendation.
All right. So on the first item on the agenda was the Flock license plate reader contract amendment. So staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the contract amendment with Flock Group Inc. and authorizing the city manager to sign a 3-year amendment to the contract with Flock Group Inc. for the installation of additional fixed ALPR cameras and dispense with the bidding requirement as specified in Campbell Municipal Code Section 3.20.030, subsection 7.
So we're going to take each item separate as a vote, but we had the presentation on all three.
Questions on each item. So let's start with the first item that we're on. Item 16.
Okay, so we're going to ask questions first. So I'm going to start with our mayor. Do you have any questions?
I do, but it actually, the questions kind of relate to all 3 items. So, let me ask this. So with item 16, so the what's being recommended, the contract amendment is going to be totally covered by a portion of the grant that was received. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Flock contract will be completely covered over the 3-year term by the organized retail theft grant.
Okay, and then what happens at the end of that 3-year? Are we purchasing these, or are we leasing these?
Yeah, so Flock cameras are all lease based. So and these can't supplant. Part of the grant was we could not supplant our current outlay of cameras. So this is a completely separate 3-year set of cameras in different locations. So we will have to discuss when the 2-year contract that we signed, it's going to be September, so probably sometime next fiscal year, we'll have to talk about the cameras that we currently have in the other locations, because those aren't related to the grant. So these will be completely separate. At the end of the 3-year term, we'll have to evaluate the effectiveness and then come to council with the decision, and hopefully there will be additional grant funding and funding rounds that we could potentially take advantage of between now and then, but it would end it would end from a grant funded perspective, and so with the contract with the 3-year term.
But what about the existing Flock cameras? Are those are on a 3-year basis, so we have to reevaluate those at the end of the three years for fund?
Those are on a 2-year contract that we brought to council in, I believe, March of 22, if I believe correctly, at the mid-year budget time. We brought that contract. So they didn't actually start installing cameras till September, so that the 2-year timing didn't really start until September of 22. So I would imagine in June or July, because we will talk about it in that fiscal year budgeting cycle if we want to continue and what that costing looks like, and then I would probably around August, September of 24 be bringing a renewed contract for those cameras in front of you for an evaluation of the effectiveness and whether council wanted to continue funding that independently.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
just question. How are you?
Yeah, questions. You're 16.
But are we doing questions and comments?
Questions, no, take public comments.
Yeah, questions and then,
Okay, no questions.
okay, questions.
Yeah, I definitely have a question. I saw that statistic of the amazing, what was it, 55% uptick in actually, it's not only finding the criminals, but it's locating the stolen goods, stolen property, things of that nature. Like, it's been a huge benefit in that way. So my question is, has there been, what's PD's feeling, has there been already, just with this implementation of the flock cameras so far, a feeling with, you know, the criminal element that like, well, kind of stay out at Campbell, like, is it to that point yet? And I'm assuming that with the addition of more cameras that maybe we'll get there at a certain point.
Well, you know, Campbell's in a unique situation, and I don't think we'll ever be at the point where every ingress and egress point in Campbell, because of the way that we're situated within the county. Other cities such as Morgan Hill have kind of a ring scenario where they've completely surrounded the city with all ingress and egress points with cameras, which is a very effective approach. I think our approach has been really to target the high traffic areas, use our knowledge of where crimes happen, especially and specifically with the organized retail theft grant. It was focused around, you know, how do we maximize near areas where we have large retail to collect data for the purpose of solving those type of crimes. But I don't know, there is a feeling amongst the criminal element right now that these cameras are out there, and many cities have them. It's not just us, and there's definitely an attempt on their part to take action to try and avoid the camera outlays through license plate theft and other things that you know, as we evolve, they evolve. So there's a constant evolving of this process, but even given that, they're still wildly successful from an investigative standpoint.
And okay, my other question would be, with this increase in flock cameras here in Campbell, would there be it would be a good assumption that we'd still continue on along that trend of making more arrests?
Well, I think when we first designed this camera outlay, we knew it was a pilot, it was a 2-year pilot, it was a limited budget. Even though it seems, you know, like a big contract, from the standpoint of how many cameras you can get from that, it's a limited amount for how many to just get one intersection. You know, so we really focused on the investigative side, meaning we wanted to capture data related to people really leaving the city rather than coming in, because we knew that would help us solve the bigger crimes, the things like the homicides, the things we were really concerned about. And then we knew there'd be this kind of subsequent benefit of sometimes catching people in stolen cars, and honestly there's been more of that outcome than we actually expected, because that wasn't the initial design of our system. Our system was designed as an investigative system, not like an in-progress crime system.
I see. Thank you.
My questions were along the line with what the mayor said earlier, which you basically answered, but I'm just going to mention it again. And that has to do with, I assume, of course, that you are going to be collecting data during this time to sort of show the effectiveness and so on. I think part of that data would be very helpful to feed to us, if you will, periodically, because I think you can be sure that there are going to be efforts made at the state level to introduce laws and regulations to restrict this under privacy acts and all of those kind of things. And I think we need to keep our state legislators informed of the good outweighing the bad of this program. And so therefore, I just request that, you know, that you continue to collect good data, that we continue to have it somewhat at our fingertips as well, so that as we talk formally and informally with our state legislators, we can keep informing them about things, these elements, and of course not wait till the last, you know, when it's about ready to expire and then look for sources. But I know you're kind of on top of that already, so thanks.
Other questions? That was more of a comment than a question.
Well,
Okay, it was
I'm
partially a question.
going to
Yes,
ask
I
questions,
know.
and I think it's
That's a
important
question. Yeah, I know. He's asking me, so. All right, let's open it to the public first. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item? Anybody online? All right, now we're gonna close the public. Now you guys can say things or.
I just wanted to also double down on what Dan's talking about, because I remember initially when I was, watching a council meeting on YouTube on my couch at home, and when this subject came about, do we even, get these SWAT cameras in the first place? I remember my initial thought was, "Ooh, Big Brother is going to be watching us soon," But then as I've learned more about what it's actually done and seeing how productive it is in solving crimes, I totally become sold on this. But I think what Dan was saying is very important. That I know, me personally, that was one of my first thoughts. It's like, is this going to be a privacy issue? And so I think that it's good to inform not just the public, but I agree that potential legislatures out there that might be thinking along those lines. I 100% agree with that.
Sergio?
Yeah, my comment on this one is just, again, I'm a huge fan of us getting the grant funding, and you do a fantastic job of that. I just want to make sure, and I think about this in part because we're going to have budget season priorities coming up. Let's make sure that we're thinking. I think one thing that would be effective is not to rely. I realize the initial grant was a pilot. This one's a little bit more of expansion. Not to rely too much on one-time funding for what could be long-term costs, and to build that into the structure of, it's great. Doesn't mean let's not go after the grant funding, but let's also think about, how we build that into our other programming so that it can be sustainable. Not saying we're not doing that, just a reminder, that's important.
And Mayor Bybee, do you have any other comments?
No, I concur with the been made, and I do support the expansion of the program, and I'm glad to see that we have the grant funds to be able to expand our program. Excuse me. So I am supportive of the staff recommendation.
Thank you, and I am supportive of the program. So at this point, I would entertain a motion on 16 only. Let's make a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion. Okay, I make a motion that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the contract amendment with Flock Group Inc. and authorizing the city manager to sign a 3-year amendment to the contract with Flock Group Inc. for the installation of additional fixed ALPR cameras and dispense with bidding requirements as specified in Campbell Municipal Code, Section 3.20.0307.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
All right, so now we're going to move on to item 17, which is the drone as first responder DFR equipment purchase authorization. And Young has already presented, so we're going to take questions from council first, and I'll start with the mayor.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions about the fiscal impact on this one. So if I understand it, the report, we have about $63,000 left in the grant funding if we end up approving item 18. Is that the first correct assumption?
That is the first correct assumption.
Okay, so then we would need then to come up with an additional 10,000 plus the additional licensing fees of, you have 29,377, and then the 14,200 in the 2 years out. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
So and then the part that's not covered by the grant then would need a mid-year budget adjustment. Where would the funds come for that?
So in regards to the $10,000 difference between the total for the two pieces of hardware and associated equipment, we would be looking to take that money from the supplemental law enforcement fund, which has available funds in it, last I checked. And then the licensing fees would be reflected in a mid-year budget adjustment, and come from the general fund. It would be added to the police department's operating budget.
And there are funds available to support that?
Yeah, at this point, we'd be looking at using existing salary savings within the police department's budget, just reallocating that towards the licensing fees at this point.
Okay, and would the budget adjustment cover just year one, or are we looking at the 28,000
So
for years 2 and 3?
the year one adjustment, so there are fees associated to installing and the servicing of the initial boxes on the roof, which is why that $29,000 differs from the ongoing $14,000 cost. So the $14,000 cost reflects the licensing and software that it takes to fly these remotely from an office inside the police department. And so that's what's reflected there. That would be the ongoing, and to Councilmember Lopez's point, after this trial phase, that would be the ongoing discussion of the viability of the program and the ongoing costs associated to it, and where, are we getting the benefit return that's expected based on the cost.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Got some questions, Sergio?
So I did have a question. I don't know if I'm in the minority after the comments on the last one, but I did have, I don't know if I'll say concerns, but questions around the privacy implications of this one. And maybe I missed it, but I wasn't quite understanding in the memo what the use case for some of this would be. If you could just talk about that a little bit more, whether it's one thing if it's being deployed in connection with specific incidents, whether or if it's more of patrolling or some combination, to the extent that you can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the unique things that we're doing is we have a DFR and a drone transparency portal where the public can actually look at flights. It gives the flight path, elevation, what the drone flew over, and that's posted on our website. And I think as I discussed, and I did a PowerPoint on the DFR program back in September of last year. And we have clear policies around what drone as first responder is for, and that's for 911 calls for service. It's not used for surveillance. It's used for active calls for service where a supervisor thinks the use of the drone is going to impact public safety, officer safety, or be a benefit to the response to that call. So really it's looking at this technology specifically is looking at how do we improve our efficiency and response? How do we supplement, as you know, our current patrol staffing, and how do we find unique ways to get eyes on a call faster? So it's really based around our 911 call system and calls for service. These things aren't just going to be flying around conducting random surveillance of the public, and part of our every flight is logged, every flight is reported. That's a requirement within the policy, and it's based on the software that we pay for and use, and then those flights are posted, and the public can see the case number and what they're related to, and what the call for service was. So we're trying our very best to make sure that the technology isn't abused, that our policies are transparent and posted, and that people have access to see, like, hey, what's the police department been doing with this technology?
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question following up on what Ann had asked. You had said that you were going to be paying this with salary cost savings, but I thought we used those for the library. I mean, for the PD building. Wasn't part of the budget the employee cost savings? No. All right. Now I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Is there anyone online? All right, so we return it back to council for comments, and I'll start with the mayor.
Thank you. So I am going to support the staff recommendation with the understanding that this is a pilot program. And I think it's important that the council be kept in the loop with data along the way to substantiate the effectiveness of the program so that we can evaluate it, and with also the understanding that future funding is not a guarantee. So we need to come up with additional revenue, hopefully grant funding or some type of funding or budget, budget reductions to cover the cost of this if in fact we do feel that it is a effective tool in our police crime fighting. So those are my comments.
Comments?
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said before, even more so with this one. It's great that we can use the salary savings, but the hope is that those, if things are going right, those won't be there forever. So let's just think about the long-term sustainability as we build out more innovation and more programs.
Yeah, I think that what the mayor and Councilmember Lopez brought up is very reasonable. I agree 100%. And I will say that I want to give all due credit to the drones that we have right now. There was, I'm sure you guys got informed as well, about the man, I believe, if I remember my details right, he had become disoriented and wandered away, and he ended up like somewhere along the Las Gatas Creek Trail next to Highway 17, just laid down, in the dark, it's nighttime. Who knew where he was, but the drone went up and it used, the reading of heat, body heat. It was able to locate him pretty quickly, right? It was I don't know how long it was up in the air, but the point was he was found, and likely his life was saved because he would have been exposed to those elements probably all overnight, who knows, but I was extremely pleased to see that, and that just shows how effective these drones can be.
Question here also, with respect to pre-positioning these in the locations that you will or have already selected, is there an alarm system associated with that so that if anyone tampers with that, you'll be notified?
So I don't have this specific specifications, but our plan is to put them in places that are not accessible to the public to prevent tampering, but there are usually readiness checks with the software where we will get communications that there's something prohibiting the drone or box from operating within some.
And I support this. Like you were saying, right now someone has to get up on the roof to do this, so we're saving that time. And I think you mentioned in here 2 minutes got there quicker, so I do support this. So all I really have is a comment. If someone wants to make a motion on.
I'd like to make a motion that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the purchase of 2 DJI Matrice M30T drones and associated equipment used in the Organized Retail Theft (ORT) and Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Fund (SLESF) grant funds. Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. We're going to go on to item 18 now, approval of the FUSUS contract and dispensing of bidding requirements as specified in Campbell Municipal Code Section 3.20.030, number 7. And you've made your presentation. So we're going to go with council questions. And Mayor Bybee, would you like to start?
I don't have any questions on this item.
Sergio?
No.
Dan, we have no questions. I'll open this to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item? Come on, you guys, someone get up during this meeting. Stephen, it's your turn. Okay, how about online? All right, then I'll bring this back to council discussion, or I'll entertain a motion. All right, no discussion, so I will entertain a motion.
Am I doing all of them?
All right, go for it,
All
Elliot.
right, let's go. I make a motion that the city council adopt a resolution approving a 3-year contract with FUS and authorizing the city manager to sign the contract and dispense with bidding requirements as specified in Campbell Municipal Code Section 3.20.0307.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you, Ian. We're going to go now to item number 19, which is the 2024 City Council meeting schedule. And Andrea Saunders, one of those.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. The purpose of tonight's item is for the City Council to adopt by resolution the 2024 City Council regular meeting schedule. Pursuant to Municipal Code Section 2.04.020, meetings of the City Council are regularly held on the first and third Tuesdays of the month at 7:30 p.m. Council has historically canceled one meeting in either July or August for summer recess and one meeting in December or January for winter recess. Staff is recommending canceling the first meeting in January, which would fall on January 7th, 2025, due to the holiday closure and staff availability for the agenda packet. This year, the City Council also elected to cancel their second meeting in January for those interested in attending the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and rescheduled the meeting from January 16th to Monday, January 22nd. Should the council wish to cancel the second meeting in January, staff is proposing rescheduling the meeting from January 21st to Monday, January 13th, not to conflict with Planning Commission's regular meetings or the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on January 20th. A few other potential conflicts that I would like to note are the National Night Out event, which occurs August 6th and is the first Tuesday of the month. Last year, the council chose to cancel their first meeting in August to attend the National Night Out event and elected to reschedule the meeting to the Monday prior. Also, this year's general election and our municipal election will be conducted on November 5th, 2024, which is the first Tuesday of the month. The City Council may wish to discuss a possible rescheduling of this regular meeting to an alternate date. This proposed schedule, as reflected as attachment B of the staff report, reflects all possible meeting dates that occur on the first and third Tuesday of the month. This item is being agendized to provide an opportunity for council to discuss the proposed schedule, recommended changes, and determine any necessary recesses or meeting cancellations as appropriate. And this concludes my report. I am available for any questions.
I'll start with Mayor Bybee, if you have any questions.
No questions.
Anybody have questions? No. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public would like to speak? And is there anybody online? I don't see anybody here. No. So I return it back to council. I do have a couple comments. The January 21st of 2025 is Martin Luther King holiday. Next year is the 20th. And the mayor's conference in DC has typically been the week of Martin Luther King holiday. So that would put not having the 21st, going into the next week would be 6 weeks from the December meeting. So when I spoke to Mayor Bybee about this, instead of pushing it out a week, bringing it forward a week, but putting it on a Monday because there's events. Okay, so we're recommending. Okay. All right. And then I would support the National Night Out. It's getting less attendance, but we still have it. And we could maybe do the 5th.
Yeah, I have some comments.
Oh, okay. So let me finish here. And then I guess the general question to us is, when do we want to have our break? Are we going to have the July 16th or the August, when do we want to have our month break? So I'll go to Sergio then.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments for consideration by the council. I would be in favor of canceling that Tuesday meeting in August. I may actually have travel that week that would make me unavailable on the 5th. So if it's possible, I'd like to request that we consider a different date or moving it, or that being the recess. Potentially it would be very helpful, and also that we consider moving the meeting for that falls on election day.
I forgot to ask Ann if you have comments.
Thank you. Yeah, I would support the recommendation to move the January 25 meeting to the Monday, the 13th. I was going to recommend that we cancel the July 16th meeting, but now that Sergio has suggested something else, I need to think about that a little bit. And then also moving the November 5th meeting to Monday, November 4th.
Okay.
So I'll wait to hear what others have to say about the August meeting. I think that it's important to have a longer break in the summer, but as many cities do, and canceling one meeting doesn't really achieve that. But I'll wait to hear from what the others have to say.
Okay, and Elliot.
Yeah, just I really this year felt pretty good to me. Like I agreed with, the break seemed appropriate. It was nice to participate in National Night Out, so I'm definitely fully supportive of that. And also January 13th, that's great. Obviously election day as well. That seems like we should definitely not have a meeting on election day. And I guess it's just we're coming down to, what do we feel for summer? And I do definitely lean towards the bigger the break, the better, but I'll just listen to the rest of our comments.
I agree with what Elliot just said in terms of the various cancellations and changes and things like that. I don't have a strong opinion at this point in time on which summer meeting to consider canceling on. I suppose we can defer that until a little bit later, but whatever majority wants is okay with me.
Okay, so to summarize what I've heard. Oh,
I'm sorry.
I do want to say that I think Tuesday, November 5th would be vastly preferable to moving it to Monday. So if the alternative is to move it to Monday, I would actually prefer to keep it on the Tuesday after the polls have closed. Would be my suggestion. I think would be more practical.
you're saying to move it to the 4th?
No, it was suggested to move it to the 4th, and I'm saying I would vastly prefer at that point to keep it on Tuesday if that's the alternative. I don't want to do it on a Monday.
Okay. Let's specifically talk about election day. So he's saying not the 4th, keep it on the 5th. Election day.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you wanted to be here on election.
The 4th is gonna be vastly busier than the 5th.
This is a presidential year, so I think having a council meeting on a presidential election night, the national election, I just don't think it's gonna.
I do not support having it on the 4th. I do not support it on the 5th.
I mean, I don't want that either,
But I question why not have it on I understand there's going to be things happening, but what would our alternative be? He doesn't want it Monday.
yeah, could we do that?
Oh, November 11th. Okay, how?
So the second.
That's the second
Second
Sunday.
Monday.
Did you say November 11th?
Yeah.
No, that's Veterans Day.
Oh, that's better. Oh, cross that off. Okay, well, we got a veteran here keeping us in line.
That's right, of course. And your
Okay, let's hear from Ann.
Well, past experience has been that we have changed the first meeting in November when it falls on election day to the Monday prior to allow those candidates that are running or who may be supporting other candidates who may want to attend functions of those candidates. So we've moved it. And so I would say that if November 5th if the majority wants to move it to November 4th and at one council member can't make the meeting, then so be it. That's just my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And as far as August 6th, I'm okay with canceling August 6th. That's fine too. I'll go with the majority on that one.
Okay, let's focus on the November one first.
Okay.
Not the first, November as a
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, I'll happily respect the will of the majority, and not that this needs to be the determining factor, but as I think the only one up here who is pretty certain to be an active candidate on that date, the 4th would be very difficult for me. Would there be a possibility of Wednesday? So I just bring that to if that is the consideration, using that criteria, it would be difficult. I get the past practice, but
Doesn't the Wednesday have the planning commission that week?
Tuesdays, second and fourth Tuesdays.
So who's on the Wednesday, the 6th?
PRC.
Parks and Recreation.
You're in different little comments here.
It can be rescheduled.
So in fairness to the election, it's going to be a big year. We do have one person running for re-election that I have no problem putting it on the 6th. What would you guys think of that? That's the Wednesday. Are we getting a yes over here? A yes? And are you okay with this? Okay, great. We've solved that one.
thank you.
All right, so November 6th, you're welcome. Now we can go to the holiday. So the options that are starred on here are July 2nd, July 16th, and August 6th. So I've heard already the August 6th to get rid of that one. So now the question is, when do we want our vacation? Do we want to go from July 2nd all the way to August 20th? That's like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion.
Okay. How about Ann?
So what's before the?
I would say, I think the concern is that there's a long recess there. I mean, having some advance, we will plan our agenda items around that, so there's no urgent items coming up. And it doesn't prevent us from having special meetings. If something urgent does come up, even if not all 5 will be there, we can still always schedule special meetings as well.
Okay. Ann?
Well, I originally was going to recommend that we cancel July 16th, but if we're going to cancel August 6th, I don't think that we should cancel July 16th. I think that's too long a period to go without a meeting.
I would agree with that. So right now, the proposal is to only cancel the August 6th. So we would go July 16th to August 20th.
But so I did say my preference is for August 6th if the majority wants to. My preference is for no meeting that week if the majority wants to move it to August 5th instead. If that would give us a longer break, it's not my first preference, but I'd be okay with it.
I think what we've heard so far is we would go from July 16th to August 20th. So we would have no meeting the week of August 5th.
I would think that's too long with agreement with what I
A month is from the 16th to the 20th. That's been what we typically have as a month.
Oh, I see.
Where are you at?
So the 16th. So the options are, we do have the meeting on the 16th, and then the next time we come back to the 20th of August. Okay, I understand it. And the other option would be we don't go on the 16th, and then we come back on the Monday, that's what the other possibility was, that
He's gone.
well, you not be gone on the 5th.
Well, I would still be gone, but I would need to figure it out.
Oh, never mind.
So I guess the question is, how long do we want to break? It's typically been a month. So if we have a July 16th meeting and an August 20th meeting, it's basically a month.
Mhm.
I'm seeing heads shaking yes, Dan. Ann?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we're looking at that. So the changes that we're going to make are keeping the July 2nd, keeping July 16th, removing August 6th, keeping August 20th, changing the election day from November 5th, not having it then, but having it November 6th here in council chambers, and the Parks and Rec Commission would then move to either a different date or a different location. And then the January, no meeting on the 7th, meeting on Monday, July 13th, and no meeting on January 21st. And I think we need a roll call on this. Did I open it up to the public? No, I got to open it up to the public for all those people in our audience. Is there anybody that would like to speak? How about online? All right, bringing it back to council, we need a motion and a vote.
So before the vote or after the vote, I have one further comment about our council meetings, and I'd like to suggest something at the end of the vote.
Okay, so
I just wanted to let you know I want to talk after the vote.
I want to do it before the vote.
Sure. I was wondering if there's any if there would be any consideration among the council members about changing the time of our council meetings and starting earlier at 7 p.m. Right now, we are regulated by our Campbell Municipal Code that says we start at 7:30 p.m. So it would require a minor code amendment and further discussion and a future agenda item. But I just wanted to know if there'd be some concurrence or some discussion about it so that we started earlier. I know some of our have moved their meeting times to an earlier start date. Times have changed since the 7:30 time start was initiated in our Campbell Municipal Code, and so I just was going to throw it out there for possible consideration.
When was the last time it changed, or has in the charter of the city, has it been 7:30?
It's been 7:30 for as many years as I've been around.
Well, then it's time for change. I'm supporting that. I mean, we haven't been here too late, but I have been here sometimes till midnight previous council, so I have no problem with.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with that as well. Like me, like, you know, the day job, if so long as it's after the day job, then yeah, you know, that's good.
I do support that. The only thing I think the balance with that is that then we don't want to push study sessions and you know, LA, like you're just saying, and closed sessions, etc., to before the working day or to push up against traffic. So just to balance that out, but I think we can work around that.
So study sessions can be after the regular.
I know, yeah, that's
okay.
what I think there's ways.
Okay.
I'm sure staff.
And again, I don't want to get into too much discussion because it's not really an agenda item, but it is related to our council schedule. So it would mean the staff having to bring back a council report for us to discuss it.
Bill, can that be part of the motion tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's revisit our motion, Dan.
The dates proposed that you had summarized from our discussion, and I would include a proposal to ask staff to come back and report to us on a potential earlier start of council meetings in the future by code amendment, say at 7 o'clock.
And I'll second with apologies for being the difficult one tonight and gratitude to my colleagues and staff. Thank you.
We need one every week, right?
I know.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Councilmember Furtado,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Landry,
Aye.
Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
And thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up. That was a great idea. We have no unfinished business, and at this point, we have committee reports. Mayor, would you like to start?
Let's see. I attended the Carol of Lights on Saturday, and it was a great community event. A lot of community spirit, a lot of families attending, a lot of activities for the kids. So it was well done, and I thank the DCBA and the chamber for supporting the event. And I think that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Dan?
No report.
Sergio? No? Yes, you do.
I do.
Yes,
Oh,
you
you know,
do.
we had the Campbell Commissioners Dinner. Right?
There's two. We had the the commissioner's dinner, which was great gift, by the way, and the puzzle was so cool. And thank you to staff for the putting on the event. It was great being at Villa Rugosa. It was easier to mingle around. And Elliot, we had a wonderful tour of our education subcommittee today. We had the opportunity to go over the Campbell Union School District's kitchen. Massive. I asked him how many square feet the building is. It's bigger than the library. So I'm guessing it's over 25, if not 30,000 square feet. The kitchen facility, clean, immaculate, big, huge packaging machines, cooking grills, the gigantic vats for soup, rotisserie ovens, freezer rooms. I mean, I was so absolutely impressed. And the chocolate chip cookies at the end were piece de la resistance. So that was our committee report. You forgot.
And yes, I just want to thank the vice mayor for putting me on blast for forgetting those two very important things. Thank you.
All right. Any other items for the good of the cause? Great. Thank you all in. Bye, Mayor.
Got it.